and Department of Justice prosecutors led the charges and led the charges as a tag team, causing political chaos to try and destroy President Trump. Now, I have made these people's names public in document productions, and that's the way it should be. We should let the American people know who threw our country into chaos to satisfy their very selfish political goals. We need to expose the political conspiracy that surrounded President Trump. They hurt our country through several different processes. We call these Crossfire Hurricane, the special counsel Mueller's investigation of the Russia hoax, and finally, Jack Smith's 2 cases against President Trump. And now added to this list is what I mentioned in my opening statement, Arctic frost, which ultimately became one of Jack Smith's cases against President Trump. FBI agent Thibault violated the FBI's no self-approval rule. Literally, there is a rule on the books in the FBI called the no self-approval rule. That rule says that a supervisor isn't supposed to create a case and then approve that case for themselves. Now, the records show that Senator Johnson of Wisconsin and I've made public, which includes Thibault's emails, proves that he did exactly what the no self-approval rule forbids. His bad conduct also exposed the cultural rot within the FBI and the DOJ's leadership. How, you might ask? Because all of them eagerly approved of Thibault's case. All those alleged layers of review on the 7th floor of the FBI building turned out to be Democratic National Committee's echo chamber. Our country's suffered as a result, and so have our government institutions. And now President Trump and the American people have an opportunity to see the details of the political conspiracy that tried to take President Trump down. Moreover, I questioned then nominee Todd Blanche about whether Jack Smith provided all the emails that I've made public to the Trump defense counsel. Blanche said that Biden prosecutors did not provide all the emails. Failing to provide these types of records and information to defense counsel prevents defense counsel from making a complete defense. It prevents them from full and complete questioning of all the witnesses. It's pretty obvious if the defense team knew that partisan FBI agents.
Oh, whoa.
Knock that phone down.
Don't you have people?
Yeah, I got people.
He's got to do it all, right? He's got to do it all. We put that together really
He's a
purposeful,
full-service
too.
speaker. That guy's got skills.
Oh.
Need some caulk?
Yeah. Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Today marks 100 days of President Trump's second term And I am honored that he has chosen to celebrate in my home state of Michigan. There's no better place to celebrate 100 days than in Macomb County, Michigan. The first 100 days proves that we are headed in the right direction, the direction in which 77 million people voted for. Just look at the White House lawn today. Pictures of violent, illegal aliens that Biden let into our country. These rapists, murderers, and child molesters have no home here in the United States of America. And guess what? There's room on the White House lawn for a lot more of them. And that's what the American people voted for. And we are going to keep going until every single one of them is removed to make our streets for Americans safer. Thankfully, there's a lot less of those illegals coming in now, because apprehensions at the border are down 94%. And Border Patrol averaged the lowest daily nationwide apprehensions in history. President Trump is taking action and Congress is passing border security bills. We've sent a message. The border is closed. Now, on the other hand, Democrats' message is open borders and literally putting violent MS-13 gang members before the American people. That's their message. Look no further than their recent trip to El Salvador, one of which was funded with, yes, taxpayer dollars. Instead of meeting with their constituents, Democrats catered to MS-13 gang members. Not the family of Rachel Morin or the family of Lincoln Riley. No. They would rather have MS-13 gang members who entered our country illegally brought back to the United States. That is the Democratic Party. Own it. On numerous occasions, they have sided with violent illegal aliens and gang members. Democrats are doubling down on their failed agenda. Why? Because they have no plan, no vision, and no leader. Or maybe they do. Maybe their next leader is in MS-13. Meanwhile, House Republicans, we have our leader. And that leader is our president, Donald Trump. He's unleashed American energy, taken out terrorists, and restored common sense by protecting women's sports. And he's achieved all of this in his first 100 days. Now, turning our attention to our business and our work this week, committees have been instructed, and we will begin to pass pieces of that one big, beautiful bill. We will identify savings and investments that will make America secure and competitive. Now, as we continue our committee work, I encourage you to watch the markups very, very closely. You will see Democrats go on the record supporting the largest tax increase in American history. Benefits for illegal immigrants and violent gang members, because that's who they support. And Democrats want the destruction of American energy and the American energy industry and the good paying jobs that come with that industry. And before Democrats begin their fear mongering, which we know they'll do, let me be clear. The only cuts that this bill makes are to the waste, the fraud, and the abuse that are in their bloated bureaucracy. And somehow, Democrats will have a problem with those. They ignore the fact of what the American people want. The American people want lower taxes. The American people want good paying jobs. They want a safe and secure and most of all competitive America. That's why House Republicans will continue our work this week to put Americans first and make America safe and secure again. While Democrats who are lost and leaderless fearmonger and fight against the American people's agenda, we will get to work to pass that one great, big, beautiful bill. Now I will turn it over to my freshman colleague, Troy Downing of Montana. Thank you, Troy.
Thank you.
What's that?
You probably don't
I'm
need
feeling
that.
towering over there. Well, first of all, to leadership, Speaker Johnson, Leader Scalise, Whip Emmer, and Chair McLean, thank you for allowing me to speak about this. I'm really excited, and thank you all for being here and listening. I'm very excited about this first 100 days. President Trump, in his first term talked about promises made, promises kept, and I think this time it's on steroids. And I think it's important because this country was at a precipice, was absolutely at a precipice. And I hear some of the critics saying too much, too fast, and I'm saying it couldn't have happened soon enough and it can't happen fast enough because we can't afford falling off of that precipice. I mean, as a nation, everything that we talk about, you hear this American dream, that's being squandered, has been squandered. That brass ring is getting farther and farther away, and the policies of this president have started to pull that back in everything that he's doing, in helping with the economy, in tax policy, in having trading partners trade fairly with this country, which is something that's overdue. Everything that's happening right now, securing the border, is all going to come back and bring that brass ring back that is that American dream. And I'm really, really excited about that. 140 executive orders. Our job now is to start codifying those so they're not fungible, so that the next administration can't undo that. We need to have policy. We need to have laws passed on that. I'm looking at the investment. Everybody's talking about the trade policies. What has that resulted in? In just this first 100 days, we got $5 trillion being expected to be reinvested in this country, 451,000 jobs. I mean, talk about giving you an ability to rebuild that American dream. I mean, we are on that path. We're looking at gas prices down 6.3%. Earnings on all private sector employees grew 1.4%. Doge. I mean, so many of us are shocked at what they were uncovering. $160 billion, and that comes to about $1,000 per taxpayer in waste, fraud, and abuse that's being crawled back. And it can't happen soon enough. And the other thing that affects my district, affects this entire country, is that invasion at the southern border. And we have seen a stop to that almost instantly. Only 9 illegal aliens were released into the United States since the president was sworn in. That's a 99.99% decrease. I mean, as I said, this couldn't happen fast enough. I believe this country was at a precipice. I think the president is delivering on his promises, and this conference is ready, willing, and able to start codifying this into law so that it continues to claw back everything that is the American dream, everything that's great about this country, and I'm happy to be part of that team. Thank you.
President Trump's first 100 days in office can be described in 4 words. Promises made, promises kept. Thanks to President Trump, the border is more secure than it's ever been, and criminal, illegal aliens are off our streets and out of our country. Under President Trump, American energy is being unleashed. Domestic production empowered, and historic investments have been secured. We've seen waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government exposed and rooted out like never before. And common sense has replaced the woke nonsense that had saturated our government and way of life. President Trump has moved at a record pace to bring America back from the pit the Biden administration left us in. With Joe Biden in office, our nation endured the influx of millions of unvetted illegal aliens, criminal aliens, from all over the world into our communities. American businesses were held back by an expansive regulatory state, and policies that lacked truth and disregarded reality put our children and families in jeopardy. But no more. The American dream is being renewed, and the American people can once again be prosperous, safe, and free. But to keep this train going, Congress must act. Our members are hard at work crafting a reconciliation bill that will deliver President Trump's America First agenda for our great nation. And we won't rest until we get it done, because failure is simply not an option. And I yield to our leader, Steve Scalise.
Thank you, Whip. Well, anybody who's been following since the day President Trump took the oath of office for this second term knows that President Donald Trump has been working nonstop at a feverish pace to deliver results for the American people. I don't think we've seen a president in 100 days get more things accomplished, follow through on more promises to get this country back on track. And we're only 100 days in. Obviously, the things that we've been working with this president on are really going to be starting off in a much bigger way with this one big beautiful bill. The budget reconciliation process formally starts today with the reconciliation bill. 7 committees go to work this week. Next week, another 4 committees will continue doing that important work. And this has been about a year in the making. This is not something that happened overnight. All of our committees have been meeting both individually. We've been meeting with the president for about a year to get to this moment and start delivering on those things that we all ran on. These are not just campaign promises that Donald Trump talked about on a campaign trail. This is also something that House Republicans said we would do. We said we would prevent a massive tax increase on American families. If Congress takes no action, there would be a $4.5 trillion tax hike on families. And if you listen to Democrats, who are all going to vote no on this package, let's make no mistake about it. They've been clear from the beginning. They just want to obstruct everything. You saw it at the State of the Union when President Trump said, look, this 13-year-old boy beat cancer. And they all just sat there on their hands, angry because President Trump was highlighting somebody else's success. And I think the American people got disgusted when they realized a whole major party in America is just going to oppose anything President Trump does because they hate him as an individual, even when it's good for America. And believe me, preventing a tax increase on over 90% of American families is good for America. But every Democrat will vote no because they want a tax increase on American families. Every Democrat will vote no on a bill that's going to secure America's border. You've seen President Trump deliver through executive action on things he can do. And it's resulted in amazing results, over 95% reduction in border crossings illegally, deportation of hardened criminals, violent gang members, murderers, rapists, finally sent back to prisons in their country where they belong, where many of them came from. And what are Democrats doing? Democrats aren't celebrating that. They're flying to other countries to try to get hardened gang members in prisons released back into the United States. It's lunacy. But that's where their party is because they are void of any ideas. They are a leaderless party. The Democrat Party literally has no leader except AOC and Crockett and Bernie Sanders. And that's what their party's become. They're just opposed to everything. They don't want to produce more American energy, but the good news is we do. That's also going to be in this bill that we start debating, to allow America to produce more energy so that we and our friends don't have to be dependent on foreign nations like Russia or Iran for oil and natural gas. We can do more of it. We can lower costs for families. We can create more jobs at home. We can ensure that more manufacturing can be done in America. That's all going to be part of this bill. We're also going to make our military more competitive. Everybody knows China's been incredibly aggressive at not just their naval fleet, developing hypersonic weapons. And America had fallen behind under Joe Biden. And Donald Trump said, we are going to address these inadequacies. And if you look at what's in this bill, again, addressing major problems to make our country competitive again militarily, and every Democrat will vote no on that as well. And the good news is Republicans said, well, if Democrats are just going to block everything, if Democrats want a tax hike, if Democrats do not want secure borders, if Democrats want to make our country more dependent on foreign nations for our energy, that's why they lost the election. Those days are gone. We can actually fix all of these problems without any Democrat support. We'd welcome their votes. We'd welcome their input. But they've chosen to just go the other way because their far left radical base won't let them work with Donald Trump on anything that's good for America. But that hasn't deterred President Trump. President Trump is resolute in fighting for those hardworking families who have been struggling. Again, the tax increase, when they talk about millionaires and billionaires, it's over 90% of Americans who would see a tax increase if no action was taken. That's families making $50,000, $60,000 a year. That's not the rich. That's the people who are just barely getting by, who have been struggling under the weight of the failures of Joe Biden's economy. The waitress who's maybe working 2 jobs, barely getting by, and President Trump and this Republican Congress are going to deliver on no tax on tips, so that that single mom who's maybe working 2 jobs can have a little bit more money in her pocket and be able to take her kids on a vacation or invest in her kids' college. That's what we're doing this week as we watch the Democrats oppose everything just because they've become a party derelict of any ideas. This is a Congress of leadership and action, working with a president who's probably done more in 100 days than any other president we've ever seen, and the best is yet to come. And our leader in this fight, who's been marshaling us through the whole way, is the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson.
Thank you, Leader. Thanks to all of you. Welcome back. Hope you all had a blessed Passover and Easter. We did. Our members are excited. It's a great day in our country. Thanks to the Republican Party, America is back, and we're excited about it. I talked to the president twice this morning already. He's having a big celebration for the first 100 days in Michigan, as Chairwoman McClain noted, and he's excited about all of that and everything that we're all doing together. We had a big meeting of the Republican conference this morning, and they're all excited. They were all home for the 2-week district work period, and they were moving around their districts and talking with their constituents and getting lots of pats on the back. It's a great time for the country, and you can sense our optimism about all that. It's been noted a couple times here, but 100 days ago, not far from where we're standing right now, President Trump made his historic return to the presidency. He made a lot of promises, and as Whip Emmer noted, the 4 words that best describe this administration so far is promises made, promises kept. We've recounted among this group many times, 77 million Americans delivered President Trump a landslide victory. We had our highest popular vote total ever as House Republicans, 74.8 million, and we got a mandate to do exactly what we're doing right now. We have not wasted a moment. President Trump has accomplished more in the first 100 days than most presidents do in their entire careers, their entire tenures. The Atlantic, right? I don't know if there's an Atlantic reporter here this morning, but that's not President Trump's, they're not a fan of him, right? Yesterday they described him this way, quote, "He is the most consequential American leader of the 21st century." And that's an understatement. President Trump has, here's a list: removed men from women's sports, ended DEI in the federal government and the U.S. military, expanded oil and gas extraction to lower prices, taken steps to end unfair trade practices, secured trillions of dollars in new investments in American manufacturing, deported criminal illegal aliens, stood up for religious liberty and rooted out anti-Christian bias, combated virulent anti-Semitism on college campuses. The list goes on and on and on. That's just barely scratching the surface. That's in 100 days. We're just getting started, and that's one of the reasons that we're so excited. Nearly every public opinion survey found that voters in the last election were most concerned about 2 things. This is just one metric for consideration: inflation and the wide open border and the crisis that created. Look at this. On just these 2 issues, in 100 days, illegal crossings are at an all-time low, as Congressman Downing noted, and inflation is falling rapidly. President Biden often said that he had exhausted his executive authority. He told me that we needed new laws. He told me this many times himself. We had to stop the border crisis, but Congress has to act. I pleaded with President Biden, do your job, use your executive authority. He claimed he didn't have it. But as President Trump has just demonstrated, all we needed was a new president. We needed real leadership. We didn't need new laws. The Trump administration has stopped illegal border crossings. Congressman Downing said it well, 99.9% success rate. The border crisis is solved. More than 100,000 illegal aliens and gang members have been deported, and that makes Americans safer. They feel more secure again. Groups of migrants are actually stopping their journeys, and they are turning around. You know why? Because we've got a new sheriff in town. Due to President Trump's border policies, we now know again that deterrence works. On inflation, President Trump promised to rapidly drive down prices and make American goods affordable again. The Consumer Price Index beat expectations, actually dropped 0.1% in March. That is the first time that has happened since COVID, okay? Inflation is cooling, Energy prices are down, as we all know. Trillions of dollars in U.S. investments have been secured by the Trump administration. And again, we're just getting started. President Trump built the greatest economy in the history of the world in the first Trump administration. And we know that he can do it again. And we're going to help. And that's what we're engaged in. People are excited all around this country. We set fundraising records in the first quarter. We gave all the numbers out to the members this morning. I raised $32.2 million in the first quarter. It's an all-time record for a Republican speaker in a midterm. I'm not taking personal credit for that. I'm saying this is an all-team effort. Every House Republican is out working. Their sleeves are rolled up. They're working around the clock. We're setting fundraising records. The vulnerable Republicans from the swing districts and the vulnerable Democrat swing districts, it's the Patriots and the frontliners, okay? The Patriots outraised Democrats 2-1. They almost doubled what Democrats raised, and they have almost double the amount of cash on hand right now. That's an indication of where the American people's sentiment is. They see that Republicans are delivering and Democrats are in disarray. While we're working to build on President Trump's successes and codify his agenda into law, the Democrats just still don't get it. I mean, they just keep demonstrating they don't get it. More than 100 days into the 119th Congress, and the contrast could not be clearer. Everybody said, recounted some of this today, but they don't have any message. They don't have a clear leader. They don't have a clear vision. They don't know what to do. Their platform has been repudiated, and they're turning on themselves. You know, the vice chair of the DNC is going to spend tens of millions to take down his own incumbents. That shows you where they are. They've resorted to cursing and shouting and outrageous political stunts. Their approval ratings are in the low 20s. Their most vulnerable members got outraised 2-1, as I mentioned, and it just goes on and on. I two polls I just want to highlight, and then we'll go to your questions. There was a poll that came out a little over a month ago. It's Quinnipiac, and I think it's the most telling poll of the first 100 days of this Congress. But I got the graphic in front of me. It was Politico published it. Lots of people talked about it. The headline says Democrats face historic discontent with the base. Now, what they did was they polled Democrats and their approval of their own party and Republicans' approval of their own party. I mentioned this before, but Democrats are underwater 9%. They have a net negative 9% approval rating in their party, whereas Republicans in Congress are enjoying a 69% approval rating, okay? So that chart is stark. It's the largest chasm between the two parties in history. It's the highest marks we've ever gotten and the lowest they've ever gotten. It tells you where they are. This morning, CNN has a new poll, getting you a nod right there on the front row, right? Republicans' view of GOP leadership, 78% approve, thank you CNN, 21% disapprove, all right? Democrats' view of Democrat leadership, 42% approve, 57% disapprove. Stark contrast between the two. And one of the most baffling political displays that we've ever seen, congressional Democrats used their district work period to fly to El Salvador and provide comfort to a wife-beating MS-13 gang member who entered the U.S. illegally. I mean, it was a shameful performance, and I hope their constituents do not forget it. We won't. And we reflect on the first 100 days of the Trump administration. It's very clear which party's fighting for the American people, for a stronger and safer and more prosperous America, as Leader Scalise just said. We're happy to be here, and we're happy today. You can probably tell. Take your questions. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. On the subject of polls about the first 100 days of President Trump's administration were released a few days ago, and he has the lowest approval rating of any president in the last 80 years, according to the Washington Post, ABC News, and Ipsos, I believe. Other polls suggest similarly low numbers. How do you interpret those numbers, and is that not a sign that your conference, your party, your leader need to be changing course given those low record ratings?
No, look, there's always in any new administration, it's a roller coaster, right? When you come in and you make dramatic change, which is what he did, he's delivering on the promises made. There's some bumps along the road. We're changing everything. As we said, when President Trump was running, I told him, and we told our own voters, he could be the most consequential president of the modern era. Now the media all of you are acknowledging that is true. By extension, we can be the most consequential Congress as well, because we quite literally have to fix every area of public policy. The last 4 years was an absolute unmitigated disaster, and we got to fix it all. So when you're doing that, it's disruptive in a way, and the early initial people, they have an emotional reaction sometimes for the big changes, but what they're seeing and what the real polling is showing is that they understand that we're headed somewhere. This is out of the gates, all these big achievements that we just recounted. And I said, we're just getting started. The reconciliation bill is the big chunk of this. The vehicle through which we will deliver the America First agenda is this big, beautiful bill, which is why we call it that. The president's approval rating is better than it was in 2017 when he got started, right? Because people trust him. The thing about President Trump is he's had an administration. This is not a new thing. People remember. It's hard to remember. It seems like it was 20 years ago. But right before COVID, we had the greatest economy in the history of the world. There's been a little question and concern about, you know, the rocky start, some of the stock market, some of the tariff policy and all that. But right now, even today, people are beginning to see the dust settle on that. They understand there was a master strategy behind this, and they're seeing the results. We're going to have 100 countries, by some accounts, and maybe higher, renegotiate their trade policies with America because of what President Trump did. He's the only leader bold enough to have done that. And that's going to be a net positive, of course, for all the American people. It's going to be more fair for us. We trust the executive to do that. We trust this executive to do that. And President Trump has had some great achievements. So, look, polling goes up and down. We all talk about it, pros and cons. But at the end of the day, we're going to deliver on these results, and the American people are going to reward us for it. Yeah.
Two of your members, Elise Stefanik and Mike Muller, are both considering runs for governor of New York. Those, one seat in particular, Congressman Lawler's seat, may be one of the most competitive in the country. They can't do both. They can't run for governor and Congress. Will you have conversations with them about what works best for your conference, and have you started having those conversations yet?
I have lots of conversations. I love them both. They're two of my favorite people and my most trusted colleagues, and they're both super talented, which is why they get talked about for doing other things. We have lots of, look, we've got a very talented group here. We have lots of House Republicans who are being courted to run for Senate or governor or do something big. I mean, my preference is that they all stay here with me, right? We get the job done. But I don't begrudge anybody for having other opportunities, and we ultimately support them in whatever they do. But are we having conversations? We are, yeah, and that's all I'm going to say about it. But I ultimately, look, I support my friends and colleagues. These are more than colleagues, they're friends. And I want all of my friends to do well and go as high as they can, be of their highest and best use to the country. So we'll see how it shakes out.
Mr. Speaker Johnson, do you plan on meeting with governors to advise them on how they might restructure their budgets if you're reforming SNAP and Medicaid? Because Kathy Hochul is working on the New York budget.
I'm not sure Kathy Hochul and I are going to sit down and talk about New York's budget. But I will just say this. We're going to be good stewards of the taxpayers' resources, okay? Do not believe the hype. Do not believe the lies the Democrat Party has said. We had their ads taken down, okay? They were running ads around the country in swing districts trying to convince people that Republicans were going to gut Medicaid. It's just simply not true, and that's why their ads and billboards had to come down. We sent them a cease and desist letter because we pointed out they were lying. By the way, the Democrat leaders in Washington have zero credibility with the American people. Remember, they tried to tell us for the last 4 years that Joe Biden was an exceptionally talented, brilliant, on-point leader, okay? They don't have any credibility on any of this. We're going to prove the opposite. The committee markups, as Leader Scalise noted, we have 7 committees marking up components of the big, beautiful bill this week. We have 4 others next week. That third week that we return, the Budget Committee will merge all that together into the one big, beautiful bill, and you will see the results. We are going to preserve the programs. We're not gutting Medicaid. We're going to reduce fraud, waste, and abuse, which every single American should be applauding. The Democrats should as well, but they're not allowing themselves to do it. And we're going to make sure it works better. We're going to preserve the program, not cut it. It's exactly the opposite of what the Democrats are saying. So the states will adjust to all these things, and we will make sure that the people who need these benefits and rely upon them are protected. Okay, that's the whole thing. Yeah.
Apologies for a wonky tax question. One of the big concerns for some of our investors and Bloomberg readers is the tax treatment of carried interest. The president wants to change that. What are your views on that?
I've listened to the discussion, a very thoughtful discussion back and forth amongst interested parties, and I'm not going to forecast where that comes. I mean, I know, look, I'll say this about our Ways and Means Republicans. They have put in, I mean, literally scores of hours down in the basement with the whiteboards, gaming out the very ideas and making sure that we make the right choices. You'll see a lot. That markup will be very telling on that. But they've come to a consensus. I'm not going to get out in front of them before that's discussed and released in committee. But we've heard from interest groups around the country, and we want to do right by them. I think at the end of the day, I think what's going to be great about this legislation, the reason it's going to be so consequential, the reason it's going to be the biggest legislation, I think, in many decades that Congress has passed, is because not only are we going to give everybody a tax break, right? They're not going to have the largest tax increase in U.S. history at the end of this year. It's going to help hardworking families. It's going to be turbo fuel, turbo boost to the economy, because I think this will send a message of stability to the markets, the bond market, the stock market, investors, job creators, entrepreneurs, that they have their tax rates permanent and solidified. They know they can plan accordingly, and that people have more money in their pocket to spend on their own families and their own needs and obligations. That's going to be good for everybody. And I think when it comes to this, I think all boats are going to rise again. That was the net result in the first Trump administration, the greatest economy in the history of the world, because we did thoughtful tax policy and we did real regulatory reform. Right now, as Congressman Downing said, both those things are on steroids. And you're going to see this result in spades, and people are going to see it and feel it. And by the way, they're going to feel it before the midterm election in 2026. So that's another big thing. Last one.
You inserted a provision in a rule to block efforts to target Trump on tariffs. And now you've done the same to prevent resolutions of inquiry, including this probe into Pete Hegseth, his use of signal. Why are you using the rules of the House to effectively protect Trump rather than let the House work its will?
No, we're using the rules of the House to prevent political hijinks and political stunts, and that's what the Democrats have. As I mentioned, no leader, no vision, no platform. All they have is obstruction. They're trying to target. They showed us over the last 4 years, the last 8 years. They used lawfare. They used conspiracy theories. All these political weapons to just go after the president and make his life miserable. That's not what the American people voted for. That's not what they deserve. We can do better. So we're preventing this nonsensical waste of our time. We don't have time to waste. We got to, as I mentioned, we got to fix every. But as we've discussed many times in this room, the executive branch has the constitutional and appropriate legal authority to address unfair trade practices with other countries. That's exactly what President has been doing and is doing, and the results, I think, are going to be obvious at the end of this. We have to give them the runway. This is not a separation of powers concern at all. Congress has a role to play, but so does the executive, and I think everything they've done thus far has been entirely lawful and appropriate, and that's what our policies reflect. So we're going to continue to do that, and I think the American people are going to see the result at the end, and they're going to be quite satisfied by all this. So we got to move. Thank you.
Can you give a quick timeline on reconciliation?
Yeah, I'll just say this: we're sticking to our plan. We had a big 6 meeting yesterday with Secretary Bessent and Kevin Hassett at NEC, Senator Crapo, who's the finance chair over there, Leader Thune, I, and Jason Smith, Ways and Means chair, and we had White House folks there as well. And what we discussed was the timeline. As the Treasury Secretary Bessent has said a few times, he gave us, credit for moving this so aggressively on this calendar. I'm really glad that we did, because we got to deliver this in economic relief for the American people quickly. We've got to codify all this. We are on track to pass the bill out of the House, as we've said from the very beginning, and get it over to the next stage by Memorial Day. Now, I don't know how long the Senate's going to take to do their piece, but I was very encouraged after the meeting yesterday, frankly. Leader Thune and Senator Crapo are on point. The Senate Republicans have been working very hard together. We got almost a year head start on them on this process, so that explains the sequence of events. But we're going to get it done by Memorial Day. Senate over there, they take a few weeks to work through that. We merge this together, we get it to the president's desk quickly for signature. The Secretary Bessent said yesterday, a big celebration by July 4th. I hope it happens much sooner than that. And we're going to keep pressing aggressively in the House to make sure that happens. Thank you.
And a debt limit included in that?
Yes.
Americans want peace through strength. Well, we're restoring it. Just ask the Houthi rebels about the resolve of the American people. Americans want common sense, and we're fighting for that as well. After 100 days, one thing is clear. Republicans are keeping our promises. We're getting America back on track. Here's our record. The Senate confirmed President Trump's cabinet at lightning speed, record rates. His team carries out the agenda to get America back on track. That's what that team that we confirmed is doing. We promised safety and prosperity, and we're delivering. Well, first, we're making our communities safer, and you're seeing that all 50 states. President Trump quickly restored strong border policies. He ended the chaos. He reinstated Remain in Mexico. He designated the cartels as terrorists. He stopped Joe Biden's widespread abuse of parole authorities. And he is doing what he promised in terms of deporting criminal, illegal immigrants. I applaud President Trump. Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, Border Czar Tom Homan, they have made a significant difference to the safety and security of the American people. Illegal crossings have dropped 94% on their watch. I mean, think about it. Before, under Joe Biden's open border policies, let's take a look at March last year, they were having 7,000 illegal immigrants cross into this country each and every day. Now under President Trump, 7,000 for the entire month of March. Talk about a dramatic impact, a dramatic difference. That's it. Immigration and Customs Enforcement report there were over 100,000 deportations in the first 80 days of the administration. We've seen more ICE arrests of illegal immigrant criminals in the last 100 days under President Trump than we saw in all of 2024 under Joe Biden. So the message is now clear. If you threaten our communities, you're out. No second chances. That's it. This is progress, and it is promises made. Republicans in Congress, what did? We passed the Laken Riley Act. President Trump signed it into law. I think the first bill that he signed into law. The first serious immigration legislation in decades. It honors the memory of Laken Riley, a young nursing student who was murdered by an illegal immigrant in Georgia when she was out for a jog. It also honors the memory of Sarah Root. Now, she was a young woman from Iowa. She was killed by an illegal alien who was driving while drunk. Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa championed Sarah's cause for years. The Laken Riley Act mandates illegal immigrants who break the law be detained, not just released into the community. Look, Republicans in Congress, compared to what we saw with the Democrats in the last 4 years, we are committed to protecting American families. That's the reason that we continue to work with President Trump to get Border Patrol agents the tools and the resources that they need. Things they were never able to do under Joe Biden and the Democrats with their open border policies. Our agenda puts us on a path to finish the wall. It will boost the Border Patrol. It will provide the staffing that Immigration and Customs Enforcement need. It's going to build more detention space for the lawbreakers. You think about who those lawbreakers are. Those were people who felt invited into our country by Joe Biden and the Democrats with free medical care, free food, free housing, free plane tickets, the open invitation, and an open border policy. Those days are over. This is how we keep our communities safe. I'm going to switch to energy, Mr. President, because we have a bold energy agenda as well. For far too long, restrictive regulations locked up our God-given resources, the energy we had in the ground here certainly in my home state in Wyoming, but all across the United States. The cost of energy for American citizens rose 31% in the past 4 years. Who can afford that? Well, we're reversing that trend. President Trump.
My privilege to introduce Vice Chair of the Democratic Caucus, Ted Lieu.
Thank you, Chairman Aguilar, and honored to be here with Representatives Mannion and Delaney. Donald Trump's first 100 days have been one of the worst first 100 days of any U.S. president in history. That's because his policies are harming America, and the American people have noticed. Multiple polls show Trump's approval ratings plummeting. An Associated Press poll showed him at only 39% approval, 59% disapproval. And a recent Washington Post poll also shows him at only 39% approval, the lowest of any U.S. president in 80 years. One reason is because of tariffs. His indiscriminate tariffs have increased prices. I urge all of you to look at a statement from the International Longshore and Warehouse Union. They put out a statement saying that the tariffs are crushing the working class with higher prices. And what's even worse is we don't even understand the rationale for these tariffs because the White House has put out two completely different rationales. One of them is we're imposing these indiscriminate tariffs to try to strike deals to go to a zero tariff situation with other countries and have more free trade, reduce trade barriers. And then you have Donald Trump saying over the weekend, I'm doing these tariffs to create an external revenue service, to use this as a permanent revenue source to take the money that consumers are paying and inject that into the federal government. Those are completely opposite rationales, and the White House can't even figure out why it's doing these tariffs. And then let me just conclude now about Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. I note that he has recently spent taxpayer funds for a makeup studio. I hope it's going well and making him look better on TV. But in terms of his policies, they are completely awful, and especially his operational ability to handle sensitive information. You may have seen recent reporting showing that his phone number has now been all over the internet. And if hackers have your phone number, there are a number of ways to surveil your phone. I asked reporters to look into whether he used his personal phone overseas. There is a hack called the SS7 attack. Stands for Signaling System Number 7. I was part of an investigation a few years ago. It doesn't matter how great your phone is, it's because of telecommunications providers you use. There's a flaw in there that they can surveil your phone, and they can do that in the US, it's even worse overseas. So you all should check out whether Secretary Hegseth compromised his phone if he used it overseas. With that, it's my honor now to invite Representative Mannion to come speak to you. Before being in Congress, he was a public school teacher and a state senator from the great state of New York.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Good morning, everybody. I'm John Mannion from Syracuse, New York. I'm a member of the Agriculture and Education Workforce Committees, and I represent New York 22, Central New York and the Mohawk Valley. We're at 100 days into this second Trump administration, and what we've seen is chaos, confusion, confrontation, and fear. We're witnessing an extraordinary assault on our Constitution, on our norms and our values, on our democracy, unlike what we've ever seen before, as we're watching in real time the dismantling of governmental guardrails. One place where the damage is particularly clear is as it relates to our trade policy. Tariffs should be used with precision and purpose, but not as blunt political instruments. I believe now is the time for Congress to reassert the constitutional authority it continues to cede to the executive branch, and tariff policy is a good place for that to start. New York 22 has a long history of manufacturing, of innovation. We have a vibrant agricultural sector and world-class research institutions. We're home to the largest private investment in the history of this country, with Micron's historic $100 billion project to onshore semiconductor chip manufacturing in my district in Clay, New York. It's a transformative project that will create thousands of jobs and solidify our region's role in the global economy and the global tech economy. But just as importantly, it is about making sure that our national security and the resources that we use to preserve our national security is happening right here in our country. My district is a down-the-middle district. We have representatives at the state legislature and the counties that are both Republicans and Democrats. CHIPS and Science was a piece of legislation that required all levels of government from both parties and stakeholders and experts in the field to negotiate it, get it right, so that we can make sure that we put our national security at a premium and the emerging threats as it relates to supply chains. We had to address that. We did address it. It was done in the last Congress, and as a result, that project is moving forward. When it comes to tariffs, I've looked at maps with arrows that show the negative impact, and no arrow is bigger than the state of New York. I live less than 100 miles from the Canadian border. My mother grew up in a town called Chateauguay, New York, which is 5 miles from the Canadian border. But you don't have to be 5 miles from the border to see the impact that already exists. Tariffs are necessary tools that can be used for national security. for protecting hardworking Americans and their jobs and to grow that. But the current administration's approach lacks strategy and nuance, fails to recognize beneficial relationships between our friends, our allies, and our business partners like Canada. In Central New York and the Mohawk Valley, we rely heavily on trade with Canada for both imports and exports. Sometimes a product's production crosses the border multiple times, sometimes within the same company, and still tariffs would be imposed on those pre-manufactured products. Materials come from Canada, and our products go to Canada. We have multiple industries that are being impacted. In agriculture, lumber, metal production, as I mentioned, our building materials for an important plant that is coming into my district. There are double and triple tariffs that are hurting the bottom line. They're hurting jobs. Contracts are being canceled. Contracts are not moving forward in the negotiation process. Costs are being driven up. It makes absolutely zero sense. So we have to get this right. The relationship between my district and Canada is so intricate, and it goes beyond just commerce. Canadians are our friends. They're often our family members. As I said, they're our business partners. And what newly elected Canadian Prime Minister Carney made remarks last night, and he called this the American betrayal. To hear stories of Canadians taking American products and turning them over so as to easily identify that product as American made is unbelievable. Something that I would not imagine in our lifetime. And it is an unnecessary act because of the unnecessary acts that have come out of this administration. The Prime Minister pledged to find new relationships and new agreements with reliable trade partners outside of the United States of America. And I do agree that describing this situation as a tragedy is accurate. My conversations with New York farmers, including dairy producers, owners of apple orchards, maple syrup producers, and other industries like lumber, the interconnectedness between New York State's economy and Canada is vital to our collective success. Items like fertilizer, potash, these come from Canada. 90% of our potassium, not just in Central New York, but all across this country, comes from Canada. So we must use precision when it comes to our trade policy. Tariffs are basically a tax on American consumers and businesses, continues to drive up costs for essential items like groceries, fuel, agricultural supplies. Where I'm from, in Central New York, we want policies that reflect the realities of our interconnected economy with our friend and ally, Canada. America, the people of New York 22, our farmers, we all need policies that make sense, not a whipsaw, on-again, off-again tariff game that this current administration is playing. It's reckless. The impact will be massive. There will be waves of negative impact on multiple sectors of our economy. And that means it's going to hurt hardworking Americans. It's going to hurt small businesses. We must restore our standing as a reliable trade partner, not just with Canada, but with our other allies and trade partners around the world. Simply, we are hurting consumers. We're hurting Americans. We're hurting businesses because of a lack of a cohesive strategy. We need to be more thoughtful. We need to be more targeted. We need to strengthen our economy without placing undue burdens on hardworking Americans. So I ask that we have sanity to our trade policy and that we restore our country's standing around the world, not just as a reliable trade partner, but as the beacon of democracy around the world. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak, And with that, I'll pass along the microphone to my colleague, Representative April McLean Delaney.
Good morning. I represent the 6th District of Maryland, and when elected, made a commitment to my constituents to seek common sense, common ground solutions. Sadly, the past 100 days, I've desperately been trying to find either common sense or common ground, and in fact, the chaos that has ensued has hurt everyone within my district. My district is as economically diverse as any district in the country. It starts not far from here in Montgomery County, where NIH researchers are curing cancer, and NIST employees are establishing parameters for AI innovation. And it goes all the way to beautiful Mountain and Western Maryland, where family farms are providing their bounty to our community, and it borders West Virginia and Pennsylvania. In my district, no one has escaped the harmful impact of Trump tariffs and isolation policy or his indiscriminate cuts to federal workers. I represent over 35,000 federal workers at agencies such as NIH, the National Institute of Cancer, NIST, our Fire Academy, and Fort Detrick. Farmers are very concerned about selling their crops because of tariff impacts, but also because of markets drying up. Markets they normally sold into, like through USAID or through SNAP programs. And cancer and innovation researchers and the surrounding biotech and tech private markets have been dealt a devastating blow from government cuts to both agencies and research and innovation engines. Small businesses and consultants are cratering because of lack of business. And this in turn is hurting everyday smaller businesses, markets, salons, sole proprietorships, who depend on spending in their community. And this includes tourism and business linked to our 7 national parks in this district. We are home to the C&O Canal, which gets as many visitors per year as Yellowstone. With respect to specific examples, last week I toured the Volvo factory in Hagerstown, Maryland, where they make Mack trucks. I was privileged to even get to drive one. They produce the engines and the axles for these vehicles and are pioneering some EV technology. But in the short term, they told me they have 1,700 workers. But instead of reshoring and bringing innovation and investment into the United States, Volvo is projected to cut 50 to 100 workers due to tariffs and economic insecurity. They do not know how the market will react, and more cuts might come later. Moreover, I have met with each of my 5 county farm bureaus: Montgomery County, Frederick, Allegheny, Washington County, Garrett, and they're all concerned about crop market prices, SNAP, and reimbursement for investments they've made into their farms, which have not been reimbursed by government programs for which they were promised. It is a tsunami hitting them from every angle, and toppled with that are threatened cuts to Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security. And of course, rural health clinics are really at risk in my district because of their dependence on Medicaid. These self-inflicted, nonsensical, penny-foolish and pound-foolish policies are impacting our economic security, our U.S. competitiveness, and our national security. Much more to say, innovation, and our trust internationally in the U.S. and the U.S. economy and our U.S. dollar. Having said the above, I stand ready to work on common sense, common ground solutions, and across the aisle to make a reality the things we all care about, including focusing on inflation, innovation, affordability, and fortifying our U.S. resilience, our U.S. competitiveness, and our national security. I thank you, and I look forward to taking any questions.
I appreciate Representatives Delaney and Mannion sharing perspectives from their district with us. Questions? Michael.
Good to see you, Chairman. Former President Trump told The Atlantic in an interview they published yesterday that he doesn't think Democrats have a leader or know what they're doing. Given your criticisms of the president's first 100 days, how do you respond to that? And do you see criticisms of the party lacking a leader as a challenge going into 2026?
Not at all. Our strength of purpose and resolve is driven exactly by the constituents that Representatives Mannion and McLean Delaney are talking to. Our strength and our focus is on improving our communities in this country. And the chaos that we see from Donald Trump is not helping that. It's not helping the fact that he said he would lower costs on day one, the failed promises. This is just a deflection by the president for promises that he has been unable and unwilling to achieve. So it doesn't concern us that he wants to play politics because he can't deliver for the American public. Our focus is just that. We will continue to be guided by the strengths of our communities and the focus of our districts, lowering the costs that people are burdened by, increasing rents, increasing grocery costs, increasing costs of living. Those are the things that the American public is concerned about, and they don't see a leader in Donald Trump that is willing to do that. We're working every day, House Democrats, to lead with that example. We look forward to the opportunity when we have gavels so we can carry forward policy that does just that. Yes, sure.
Democrats, we respond to American people. The American people are our bosses. Unlike many House Republicans who basically take direction from one person and completely flip their views just because Trump says something. Most Republicans are free traders. They would be aghast at indiscriminate tariffs, and now they remain silent just because Trump said it. Most Republicans understand Russia is a threat to the world and the United States, and many of them are now silent just because Trump has this bizarre relationship with Putin where he bends the knee to Putin. So Democrats operate differently. We're with the people of America. We're from the ground up. And that's why poll after poll now shows Donald Trump at only 39% approval, because American people don't like what one man is trying to do.
Thank you. Riley?
Now that Congressman Connolly is stepping aside on oversight, can you walk us through the process of replacing him? Will there be an election? What's the timeline? And would that be a caucus-wide vote?
There's no vacancy in the Oversight Committee. First of all, Jerry Connolly has spent 30 years representing Northern Virginia. He is an amazing public servant. He continues his work. We wish him the best. He's been incredibly honest and transparent about his battle with cancer. At this moment, as you mentioned, he will be stepping aside. We will be conducting ourselves in a way that he desires, that he and the committee desire, and that is for leadership to step up and help run the meetings as well. And we heard a presentation from Representative Lynch this morning on behalf of the Oversight Committee, but there's no vacancy at the committee. If that's our position. Nick?
I want to ask about, with the first 100 days, Leader Jeffries up here yesterday was talking about it being an all-hands-on-deck moment for Democrats. As you guys think about the next few weeks, can we expect to see more demonstrations like what we saw from Leader Jeffries on Sunday on the steps? Are you thinking of other, perhaps unorthodox forms of protest around here?
There will be public displays where we have our perspectives heard, but just reflecting on Sunday, I thought it was great that Senator Booker and Leader Jeffries, two people of faith on a Sunday, sitting and talking about the dangerous and reckless behavior of this administration and how it is un-American and makes life difficult for members of our community. I thought it was organic and a good testament to the good trouble that they were trained under in John Lewis. And I think that House Democrats look forward to exercising our viewpoints, maybe creating a little bit of good trouble and making our perspectives heard, but doing it together as a caucus family. We'll be working with Senate leadership as well, and we'll have plenty to say as a group. But moving forward in the next couple weeks.
Yes, thank you. In the first 100 days, has the president done anything that rises to the level of impeachable offenses?
What the president has done is sought to erode the fabric of our country by stoking chaos, fear, division. And this is not unlike behavior he has done in the past. But right now, we will deal with the tools in front of us and the policies that he and House Republicans have placed forward, which are reckless cuts to the healthcare system, to our supplemental nutrition that is relied on by women and children and families across this country. Those are the policies that we're going to push back against, and those are the items that the American public is paying attention to. Impeachment is at times a tool that can be used. This president is no stranger to that. He's been impeached twice, but we don't have any confidence that House and Senate Republicans would do their jobs, and so this is not an exercise that we're willing to undertake.
Thank you, Chairman. Have you had any contact with Congressman Norcross since he's been hospitalized? Any indication of when he might return, or have you had any conversations?
I haven't. I know other members of the leadership team have. I don't have any updates on him.
Vice President Harris is making a speech tomorrow, just around the 100-day mark. Anything you're looking out for in her speech? Anything you would like her to touch on?
Vice President Harris is a leader, and I would expect that she's going to talk about the willingness of Americans and women to serve in higher office. Her perspective is something that is sought after, and what she has experienced in the highest offices in the land, to starting as a local DA, being a statewide office holder. I think she has a lot to share about her experiences in elected life, what lessons can be learned by others who are interested in taking that step. It is an incredibly difficult step, as our two new member colleagues understand. Taking on this burden of public service is such a blessing, and I think she has a lot to share that we can learn from. So I look forward to hearing the speech myself.
Thank you. I'm curious, in these first 100 days, how does Democratic leadership feel like Trump's presidency has shaped the Democratic Party, and how far into the soul-searching process is the party?
Our party is focused, and we're focused on our members. House Democratic leadership is focused on 213 members of our caucus, with the 2 vacancies, taking our cues from our members, and the focus that they have is the Vice Chair mentioned, of their districts and the experiences, the unease, the uncertainty, the burden that local farmers and businesses face in New York and Maryland, the difficult decisions that they're having to make. That guides our caucus. We feel that uncertainty, the uncertainty of seniors asking us in town halls whether Social Security is going to be there for them. Whether Donald Trump and House Republicans are going to make life more unaffordable for them and their kids and their grandkids. Those are the questions, and that is our focus. So we have the leadership team in place. Leader Jeffries is doing an amazing job, guided by the focus of our members and using our committees to push back against these terrible policies. We're going to continue that work ahead. But Donald Trump is also, I would say, a galvanizing force. It's something that unites us because of how dangerous and careless he acts, using the highest office in the land.
Democrats are trying to help the American people not be hurt by Trump's harmful policies. I was talking to a small business owner. She makes plush toys. They're actually patriotic plush toys, represent different states and so on. And she had her shipment, they're made in China, and so the shipment was on the water, and then tariffs come in, and now all of a sudden she has to pay $40,000, $50,000 when they arrive in the United States. and those costs are passed on to consumers, but she's now.
I want to thank my colleague, Senator Merkley, who's been our strong advocate for many years on the Equality Act, and of course, Senator Baldwin, who's been such a leader and has experienced the same kind of political attacks just recently that you did, Mark, but like you, she survived and prevailed. Thank you, Tammy. Look, let me say this. Well, it is hard to believe in 2025 that in so many states, not New York, but my daughter and her wife, if they lived in another state, could be told, you can't rent this apartment, you're lesbians. A doctor could say, I don't want to treat you, you're lesbians. An employer could say the same. It's amazing. 2025 in America, and people can just adversely turn people around because of who they love or how they love. People forget how much bigotry and discrimination there is that actually takes effect in law, because the law allows this bigotry and discrimination. In how many states, Jeff?
Well, we're only at 21 have protection, state protection.
So in 29 states, if I have my math right. The bottom line is this. We achieved marriage. It was a great thing. My daughter and her wife have a beautiful baby, and one is on the way, and they're living a good, happy life, just as I was able to live. But that's because they live in New York. We must have a national ethos that bigotry is outlawed. And until we pass the Equality Act, that will not be close to true in America. We're going to do everything we can to pass it. We're hopeful that good people, people of LGBTQI community, and people who are not part of that community, will tell their congressmen and tell their senators, it's about time. It's about time here in America that we have this full equality. I'm committed to the cause, personally, politically, and just morally, and will do everything I can to help get our legislation passed in the Senate. Jeff, thank you.
Well, what a beautiful day. And colleagues, it is so great to join all of you to announce the reintroduction of the Equality Act. The bill that we're here to talk about could not be more straightforward or common sense. The Equality Act simply puts into law what we all believe, that every American is created equal and should be treated equally under the law. This is a tenet of our nation's founding, and something that I know and my constituents take seriously. But as we all know, for far too many LGBTQ Americans in states across the country, equality is not the reality. Depending on where you live in this country, you are afforded a different set of fundamental rights if you are gay, lesbian, or transgender. And let that sink in. It's a patchwork of rights and protections depending on who you are and who you love. Will you be protected from being discriminated against by a bad landlord when you try to rent a house? Depends on where you live. Will you be protected from being discriminated against when you are trying to get a mortgage or a new credit card? Again, it depends upon where you live. The list of these basic rights that some people have and some people don't goes on and on. This year alone, the ACLU is tracking over 570 bills in state legislatures across the country that aim to strip away rights from LGBTQ Americans, including 12 in my home state of Wisconsin. If these bills become law, it will further this patchwork of rights. If they don't, it will still make our friends, our families, and our neighbors feel less safe, less welcome in their own communities. But look, take it from me, the first elected openly gay senator in US history. A more welcoming, more equal country is possible. It takes hard work, but it's work that is worth doing. Just a few years ago, we proved that. I was proud to lead the charge to pass the Respect for Marriage Act into law in 2022. Yep. And that was the first time that we codified marriage rights for gay and interracial couples into law. At that time, I got so many questions about how we were able to get so many Republicans on board. The simple truth was that we had open and honest conversations with our colleagues about the people in their lives, their family members, their staff members, their neighbors, their fellow parishioners who were gay. And today, that's who I ask both my Republican and Democratic colleagues to think about when considering the Equality Act. This is simply a matter of right and wrong. I, for one, believe that every American deserves to be treated and protected equally under the law. The Equality Act makes simply clear that in the United States, we will not tolerate discrimination based on sexual orientation, based on gender identity, just like religion, race, or ethnicity. Equality is not a privilege. It is what we are owed as American citizens. And I'm committed to making that promise a reality. And next, I would love to welcome up to the podium Speaker Emeritus Nancy Pelosi.
I join in applauding Tammy Duckworth and, Tammy Baldwin. Tammy Duckworth, too. Tammy Baldwin. When Tammy came to the Congress, she was the first lesbian to serve in the House of Representatives. And when she arrived, everybody knew how she became the first because of her knowledge, her wisdom, her values, and in every way, her graciousness. And we're so proud of you, and we continue to be so proud of you, Tammy. I visited her in her district as a congresswoman, can see how she related to the farmers as well as the people in the city. Let me just say that I associate myself with everything that has been said about the need for this, and I just want to tell a little different perspective. And Jeff Merkley, thank you for your leadership, and I'll talk about when we had our first press conference on this. But first I want to acknowledge Sarah McBride, our member of Congress from Delaware, and she's a pioneer in Congress as well. And as you all know, Dina Titus has been a champion on these issues from Nevada over time. So here's the thing. Well, hearing Chuck speak about his daughter, I remember when Allison was born. So to hear him talk about her with such pride in her marriage, her baby, and our babies, another baby to come, is an emotional thing for me. But just think of how valuable that is to us in this cause. Mark Takano, I heard your speech as I was coming. Our great leader, the whip, the House Democratic whip, Catherine Clark, is now with us as well. So here's the thing. Go back a few years, and when Tammy was speaking, she was talking about how to get the votes and the mobilization involved in that. But go back a few years. We had 4 things we were going to do. 4 things we were going to do. We're going to have a fully inclusive Hate Crimes Act. We're going to have ENDA, Ending Discrimination in the Workplace. We were going to have marriage when that became a court issue too. And we had a number of things, including the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. In the course of that, folks said, why are we doing ENDA? Why are we doing ending discrimination in the workplace? Let's do the whole kit and caboodle, hence the Equality Act. It was a challenge because it involved the Civil Rights Act and the rest, and those who were very protective of it, and rightfully so because of certain things that go on around here that we didn't want to interfere with what protections were already in the law. But John Lewis, remember Senator Merkel? He stood with us, right, Mark? He stood with us at that first press conference. He said to the Black Caucus, it's long overdue. The time is now. We cannot wait. This is it. And that was such a remarkable, okay, right, Mark? It was such a remarkable occasion. So we went from ENDA to equality in every aspect, and that's exactly what we should have done. So I just wanted to put it in perspective for you. When we were going along with ENDA, the groups outside said to us, don't do ENDA, don't ask, don't tell. So again, I take great pride in the fact that my last bill as speaker the first time around was the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and we were so proud because of the outside mobilization. So I want to salute our friends from the outside because this is, I know you'll be hearing from Jay Brown and Olivia Hunt, but the outside mobilization made all the difference, as Tammy described in her comments. That made all the difference in the world, telling people's experience with their own families and just the support that grew and grew and grew. So hopefully, springing from this introduction, let me just say, Senator Merkley has been such a champion, relentless, persistent, constant on all of this, and I salute you for your leadership and always look to you for guidance on this, on other issues as well. So, so that's why I'm here again to say, let's get it done. I don't know what the prospects are now, but I do know that we're going to win the House. I know we're going to win the House, hopefully the Senate. We're going to win in a short period of time. It will be clear to them, and maybe they'll be more receptive to doing what the right thing is. Now, the next speaker that I'm going to yield to spoke on the floor for, what, 20, let me read to get it exactly right. 20, how long was it, Convo? Okay, 25 hours. I had the record in the House for over 8 hours. Of course, I had on spike heels, and and we can't yield, but nonetheless, 25 hours, a record that an African-American leader could replace the record there of a, what would you call him? Segregationist. That's as gentle a word as we can use right here, I guess. So I'm so glad that I'm going before him, because you never know how long he's going to talk. But thank you, Cory Booker, for your leadership, and I'm pleased to yield to you.
Thank you, Nancy Pelosi. Give another round of applause for one of the most incredible leaders I have ever had the privilege of serving next to. We are here again, reintroducing a bill. I'm proud to be an original co-sponsor, but there are trailblazers in Congress behind me. Champions that have defied the sad truth of our America, that we still live in a nation in the majority of states that you can post your wedding pictures online but still be denied the ability to stay at a hotel in your community or be fired from your job without legal recourse. We still live in a nation that has a profound injustice. The Equality Act is on the right side of history, and right now we stand in the cold shadow of injustice. And so here we are again introducing this bill, but it is not a normal time that we introduce this bill. We introduce it in the backdrop of a president that in his very campaign singled out in opportunistic bigotry the trans community. We stand here in the backdrop of a time that LGBTQ Americans are being targeted and singled out for heaped upon more injustice. This is not a normal time in which we are standing up and yet again reintroducing a bill with moral urgency. I've been thinking a lot about my own rights recently, because you cannot attack the fundamental rights of anyone without threatening the rights of everyone. I've been thinking about my own rights to walk down the street and not be disappeared by uniformed individuals and swept away. I've been thinking about my due process. I've been thinking about my free speech rights. Because when free speech is attacked anywhere in this nation, it is a threat to free speech everywhere. I've been thinking about my liberty, my ability to organize. The very rights that have been given to us in the Constitution are still not the rights that are enjoyed by everyone in our country, and certainly not the rights of the LGBT community. And so today, I want you to know we reintroduce this bill with attitude. We reintroduce this bill with swagger. We introduce this bill with confidence, because there are a lot of people who are hearing our voice right now that don't understand that they are implicated. There's no bystanders in history. When injustice is in our midst and you say nothing and you do nothing, you are part of the perpetuation of that injustice. We call upon all Americans, not just LGBTQ Americans. We call upon all Americans not just to be allies. Don't be allied only. Be implicated. Don't just be allied only. Remember our history, the horrors of our history during the Middle Passage when one African was chained and thrown overboard. All Africans were on that boat that were chained together, were pulled under. Remember our history and the courage of men and women in the trench warfare in Europe, who saw one person go down and risk their lives to run into danger to carry that person off, understanding that we stand together or we fall together. This is one of those voices. This is one of those moments that we need your voice. And so I say in conclusion very simply this. There are Americans today that are worried, that are afraid, that need to hear from you. There are Americans today that are afraid to go to their grade school because they're still being bullied for who they are and how they love. There are people today that feel so tired and so worried that this nation will not stand for what it says we should stand for. And so I say to those people that we will speak up. We will stand up, that Americans will stand up. I say to those people, remember what the good book says, that weeping will endure through the night, but joy cometh in the morning. I remind those Americans that even the truth, when crushed to the ground after lie, after lie, after lie, that the truth will still rise again, that this is still one nation under God, that we still swear an oath of liberty and justice for all, and that we will not stop until freedom rings from every coast in this country, that freedom rings for every person and every soul, that freedom rings for every American, no matter who you are, race, color, or creed, LGBTQ American or straight ally, that we declare that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it doesn't bend automatically. We declare today and every day, until justice is established in this land, until the Equality Act passes, we declare that we, the people, will grab hold of that arc and pull and bend it until we live up to our promise in a country and truly are free at last, free at last. Thank you very much.
Let me just say about Catherine Clark, who's coming up next. Wasn't that remarkable?
Thank you. Well, I want to say about Kathleen Clark that she is in a long tradition of extraordinary leaders. She is unbought. She is unbossed, she is tireless, indefatigable, and she is unconquered and will continue to fight for justice. I'm glad to pass it over.
And I want to also say of her that she was a close ally of John Lewis in the Congress, whether it was guns or LGBTQ or whatever it was. They were partners in great things in the Congress, as well as with David Cicilline, who was the original author in the Congress of the United States. I yield to the distinguished whip of the House.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Amen, Senator Booker. And I am so grateful to all my colleagues that are here. A special shout out to Senator Merkley and to our own Mark Takano, chair of the Congressional Equality Caucus. We are so grateful for your leadership on the Equality Act over in the House. So let me tell you, the Republicans' opposition to this bill tells you everything you need to know about their cruel calculation. They pick a scapegoat so they can have cover for the real agenda going on. They are vilifying a community, blaming them, and trying to erase them from our country. So you take everything from them, and then the GOP moves on to everyone else. Taking away Medicaid, Social Security, defunding our public schools and childcare, taking away control over our own bodies, and taking away the right to live as you are. They believe that safety and opportunity are not a right, but a luxury of a few. The Republicans have decided that some Americans are unworthy of freedom, unworthy of health care and housing and education and a voice because of who they are, because of what they look like, or who they've married, or how much money they have. But here's the truth that we know. The basis of the Equality Act is that freedom is a birthright of every person. And we can only defend ours if we defend everyone's. Freedom doesn't grow in a pot. It's not a container plant that you stick in a corner. It only thrives in the open, unfettered. And otherwise, it withers and dies for everyone. And that's what this fight is about. As Dr. King reminded us, we are tied together in the single garment of destiny. So thank you all for coming together. Thank you for fighting for a future, a destiny that is worthy of all of our children, and where the rights and dignity of the LGBTQ Americans are unquestioned, where every person can live free of discrimination in all of its forms. So please help me welcome a colleague who's working every day to make that dream a reality. The gentleman from New Hampshire, the co-chair of the Equality Caucus, Congressman Chris Pappas.
Well, thank you so much to our whip, the amazing Catherine Clark. I want to thank the other leaders who are with me today, Chair Takano of the Equality Caucus, Senator Merkley, thank you for bringing this bill to the floor once again. And to Speaker Emerita Pelosi, thank you for helping to usher the Equality Act twice through the House of Representatives. We're ultimately going to get this done. It's a matter of when and not if. We are committed to this fight, and so thank you for your persistence. I also want to thank Congresswoman McBride, who is an inspiration to all of us. We are so happy to have her joining our Equality Caucus in Congress. So look, full equality under the law, nothing less and nothing more. That's what the Equality Act is going to deliver. That's what it means to LGBTQ plus Americans who have not enjoyed these protections under the law. And while we know this is an uphill battle for sure, there can be no backing down from this fight. No backing down from the fight that's about freedoms and protections and the dignity that all Americans deserve. So I come from New Hampshire. We put live free or die on our license plates because we take freedom incredibly seriously there. We were the first state to pass marriage equality legislatively, where a governor signed it into law. And in 2018, Democrats and Republicans came together to add transgender granted staters to our state's non-discrimination statutes. So I know the people I represent want their government, they don't want their government telling people how to live their lives. They fundamentally want everyone to be equal before the law and to have the same rights and responsibilities. Passing the Equality Act is consistent with the basic promise of America, and it has never been more urgent that we confront the politically toxic attacks on our community and that we move forward. I think of the LGBTQ plus community members that we all talk to, people who are beyond afraid about the direction of our nation. Think about the high school student who reached out to our office. He couldn't attend class for a week after the last election, despite having supportive family and friends, because he felt to his core that there wasn't a place for him in the United States of America. I think about the trans constituent who told me the other day that they've never felt less safe in their community, are always looking over their shoulder, and are taking new precautions when they just go about their day-to-day business. No one should question whether or not they have a future in the United States or can live authentically. No one should feel unsafe in their community. No one should be a second-class citizen in the United States of America in the year 2025. So the Equality Act is for them. It's for all of us, because not only will it establish the legal protections that are overdue, but it will send a powerful and unmistakable message about who we are as Americans and the kind of future that we can secure together. You know, just the act of introducing this bill again, that's enough to give people hope at a time where it is in short supply. But we're not going to stop there. We're going to keep fighting. We're going to keep showing up month after month, year after year, until this bill is finally the law of the land. You know, Jefferson referred to equality as a self-evident truth, meaning it didn't need really any further explanation or defense. And today, Americans overwhelmingly believe the same. They embrace the Equality Act. 7 out of 10 Americans support passing this law. So it's time leaders in Washington caught up to how people are living their lives and how people feel about the enduring promise of America's founding and extending the same rights and protections to the LGBTQ+ community. We are going to get this done, whether it is in the next few weeks, few months, or few years. We all have to stay committed to this fight. So with that, I want to bring up a great partner from an organization who's a driving force behind the Equality Act, Jay Brown, who's the Chief of Staff to the Human Rights Campaign. Jay.
Good morning. Thank you, Congresswoman Clark. Thank you, Congressman Pappas. Thank you to our lead sponsors of the Equality Act, Senators Merkley, Baldwin, and Booker, and Congressman Takano for incredible leadership as champions of the LGBTQ community. And of course, we are so grateful to have Leaders Schumer, Jeffries, and Speaker Emerita Pelosi, who have stood up time and again for LGBTQ+ equality. I'm Jay Brown. I'm proud to serve as the Chief of Staff at the Human Rights Campaign, and I'm here representing our more than 3 million members and supporters across the country. Today, as we announce the introduction of the Equality Act, I'm thinking about the journey that brought us here. I'm thinking about the activists who marched at Stonewall, the couples who fought for the right to marry, the trans Americans who have bravely lived their truth in the face of discrimination and violence. Their courage has paved the way for this moment. But I'm also thinking about those who still wait for justice. The young people in states where lawmakers have targeted them with harmful legislation. The same-sex couples who still face discrimination when trying to adopt children or access health care. The LGBTQ+ workers who still feel like they have to hide who they are in the workplace. We're talking about real people here. People like Carter Brown from Dallas, who was outed at work and eventually fired due to anti-transgender discrimination. And Queen Hatcher Johnson from Atlanta, whose landlord asked her to move out after she came out. In 29 states across America, LGBTQ people still lack comprehensive, explicit non-discrimination protections. This means that in more than half of our country, your ability to live, to work, to thrive can depend on whether others approve of who you are or who you love. This isn't just wrong, it's un-American, and it's why the Equality Act is so essential. But this bill does more than protect LGBTQ people. It strengthens our civil rights protections for everyone. It expands public accommodation protections for women and for people of color. It ensures that people of all faiths are protected from discrimination. The Equality Act recognizes that our struggles for justice are interconnected, and our progress must be shared. At HRC, we've built the largest grassroots equality movement in history, a movement that has already made more than 30,000 calls this year to members' offices asking them to support the Equality Act. We've mobilized millions of equality voters who make LGBTQ rights a priority at the ballot box, and we've partnered with major businesses that have adopted non-discrimination policies of their own. We've built coalitions with allies across the political spectrum who understand that discrimination is bad for business, bad for communities, and bad for America. So today, I'm asking all Americans to join us in this fight. Call your representatives and tell them to support the Equality Act. Share your stories, because personal stories change hearts, minds, and laws. And remember that progress isn't always linear, but it is inevitable when we stand together. And now I'm so honored to introduce my dear friend, Advocates for Trans Equality's Director of Federal Policy, Olivia Hunt.
Thank you, Jay. Good morning, everyone. It is an incredible honor to be here alongside so many people who have championed LGBTQIA+ equality for so long. Senator Merkley, Representative Takano, Senator Baldwin, Leader Schumer, Senator Booker, I apologize, Representative Bragg, Representative Pappas, Leader Pelosi, and of course Whip Clark. Thank you all for everything that you've done for our community. Now, if you're anything like me, for you, spring is a time to take stock, to pause and reflect on what's gone before. And for me, the past couple of weeks have been loaded with a lot of memories from about 5 years ago. The constant reminders of those first COVID lockdowns that we all went through together. The memories of how uncertain we were, how uncertain the future felt, the ways all of our lives have changed forever. But something else has struck me about those past 5 years, which is that over those past 5 years, more than 2,500 anti-LGBTQIA+ bills have been introduced in state houses around the country. A veritable tidal wave of political bullying disguised as legislation, and fully 1,000 of those bills were introduced in just 2024 and 2025. As we all know by now, most of those bills specifically target transgender youth and their families. Now, thankfully, more than 90% of these bills have been defeated. In some cases, the same bill's been defeated again and again, year after year, because our community is strong and it's resilient, and we'll always come together to do what's right and defend our most vulnerable members. But this year is different. This year, in addition to the attacks that we've become used to at the state level, the Trump administration has launched its own unrelenting attacks on LGBTQIA+ Americans. And just like in the state houses, they've reserved their most vicious attacks and their most dehumanizing rhetoric for trans youth. This is a moment that demands action. These are not abstract policy debates, it's a coordinated effort to erode civil rights and protections, to criminalize LGBTQIA+ existence, and to erase us from our communities. All people deserve to live full and honest lives. More importantly, all children deserve to grow up free of violence and harassment and discrimination just for being who they are. And they deserve to see a future that has a place for them in it. Trans youth deserve to be protected by their government. They shouldn't have to be protected from their government. It's long past time that our federal laws reflect and protect the reality and dignity of all people. Advocates for Trans Equality is proud to support and endorse the Equality Act. Trans people have always existed. We've always been part of the complex tapestry that is the United States. Across the country, we're writers, teachers, journalists, cashiers, ministers, construction workers, librarians, any other profession that you care to name. We have always been here, and we always will be here. And that's a truth that no amount of hostile rhetoric, policy, or legislation can ever change. Thank you all, and I'll turn the podium back over to Senator Merkley.
Thank you so much. I think we can take a couple questions if folks have any. Yes?
Hi, Senator. A few of you mentioned there is an uphill battle with getting this legislation through. How do you plan to talk about this with your Republican colleagues, and what is the strategy to advance this?
You know, the question, if you couldn't hear, was how do we plan to talk about this with our Republican colleagues? As Tammy Baldwin was saying, she had very explicit conversations, very open conversations. Remember, the Republican Party at one point was founded on the notion of fairness, to fight against discrimination against black Americans, to fight against slavery. And we know when we passed the Employment Non-Discrimination Act in the Senate that we had partners across the aisle who said discrimination is wrong. We passed it with more than 60 votes. We sent it to the House, and it was not brought to the floor, or ENDA might have passed at that point. Now we have this expanded bill. If you can be against discrimination in employment, you can be against discrimination in financial contracts. You can be against discrimination in mortgages, in jury duty. You can be against discrimination in public accommodations and housing. And so we're going to continue to remind our colleagues that discrimination is wrong. Join us as you joined us back in 2013 when we passed the Employment Non-Discrimination Act. I don't know if anyone from the House side would like to speak to that.
Sure.
Yeah.
So Senator Baldwin talked about the conversation she had with her Senate Republican colleagues, but I can tell you in the House, when we passed the Respect for Marriage Act in 2022, there was no expectation that we would have, I forget how many it was, Nancy, like 30 or 40 Republicans vote for the bill. We thought we were just putting forward some legislation in response to what Justice Clarence Thomas opined in one of the decisions. The court said he welcomed cases to revisit what he felt were wrongly held decisions. You know, that wasn't really about conversations we had with colleagues. That was about a change that had happened in our country. Those 30 or 40 Republicans that voted with the Democrats in a surprising way, which gave it momentum in the Senate, was Republicans reflecting a change of heart in their districts. And so I say that the work that we need to do is to also, as Speaker Emeritus has always taught me, that public sentiment is everything. And that now is the moment to bring greater understanding and greater momentum because really the Congress is a reflection of the people. Speaker Emeritus, would you like to comment on this?
Well, I'd like to because we passed it twice in the House, and we were optimistic that there would be something that could be done in the Senate. In keeping with what Senator Merkley said and what distinguished Chairman Takano said about this, we thought corporate America, because they said they were supportive of this, would weigh in on the Senate, respectful of their own employees, high-ranking employees in their corporations. We said, when we were overseas, when we were in Singapore, we said to the people, the businesses that were there, if you want the best, you better be for legislation like this, so that people can freely participate openly. So I do think there's still an opportunity. Well, they're in a little different place right this minute, but there is an opportunity for corporate America to weigh in for their own employees if they want the very best. They will be helpful with the Equality Act. And that is what we anticipated in the House, that they might be true to some of the things they were telling us and act upon those beliefs. Corporate America.
Well, thank you. And I would say, you know, corporate America is part of that public sentiment we're talking about. And I was with the Speaker Emeritus when we spoke to the American Chamber of Commerce in Singapore on that trip to Taiwan. And by the way, Taiwan is the leading nation in Asia for LGBTQI rights, very proudly so. And but again, I agree with her. Corporate America is a huge voice in the advancement. So much has changed within corporate America. The vice presidents, the executives, and the very workforce is demanding equality as well.
I might say, when we were in Singapore, when we went there, one of our tasks given to us by Mr. Takano was that we would advocate to change the law there, because to have a same-sex relationship was not, well, it was illegal. Unspoken but not legal in Singapore. A week after we left, they changed the law. They changed the law because corporate America wanted the very best, even in Singapore.
Any other questions that we might have? Yes.
Thank you so much. I wonder if anyone can speak to the decision to do this today on the president's 100th day in office?
You know, sometimes I don't know there was a conscious decision, but I mean, look at this beautiful day. It's a beautiful day to stand up for equality. You know, I think the president's clearly hitting a wall that Americans are saying, many Americans are saying, we didn't vote for this. Many Americans never voted for this, but many Americans, I mean, it's a great day to remind them that, you know, what is in the core of what is the right side of history, a more perfect union. This is the march toward a more perfect union, and that's what most Americans believe in. And it's a great day on this 100th day to remind our administration what the right side of history is.
Yes, go ahead.
The balance of power and capital really shifted a lot since the Marriage Equality Act. Do you still believe there's a path forward to the Equality Act in the current balance of power?
The question was whether there's still a path forward in this particular Congress at this moment. Well, the path forward is in the conversation with communities across this nation. My Republican colleagues in the Senate are not planning to put the Equality Act on the floor. That's the blunt truth. But we're going to continue advancing that conversation. And I think about my daughter, who said to me when I talked to her first about the Employment Non-Discrimination Act and then about the Equality Act, she said, "But Dad, discrimination is already illegal. Why I don't understand." And I think much of America already believes that we put discrimination in our past. We are reminding them that that is not the case. As we heard from the advocates, discrimination is alive and well. Discrimination is being encouraged by some of the leaders in the Republican Party. But we're here to say that that is wrong. And we're going to keep amplifying this conversation inside the halls of Congress with our advocates and communities all across this nation until we pass this bill.